Hi, my name is Trever Shirin, and today I just want to briefly talk to you about the concept of locus of control. The idea of locus of control comes from Julian Rotter in the 1950s, who really wanted to identify in people's personalities where they believed certain events in their lives were occurring and who had power in the midst of those circumstances. Now, we're going to play off of a little bit of Julian's ideas, and we're going to explore it also through an idea called the circle of control as well. So let's imagine there's a circle. Within this circle is anything that we have control over. Now, I'll add the caveat that I think sometimes control is a really strong word, and that in life, I don't know if we actually have total control over anything. But for the purposes of this activity, we're going to use the word control to talk about the amount of influence or the amount of management that we can have over things. So anything within this circle is something we can control. Anything outside of this circle is something we cannot control. I like to use the example of the weather because for the most part, we all agree that we actually have no control over the weather. And so imagine that you and I have decided that we are going to go up into the mountains this weekend, and we are going to go on this great hike in an area that I've already scouted out for us, and I've been telling you for weeks that this place is beautiful. It has a nice river that we can cross over the stones, and it is just amazing. Very few people go there. The best hike we can go on. And as we start driving towards this area that we're going to begin our hike, it starts raining torrentially. We have a couple options in this situation. Most of the time, we're going to feel really frustrated and disappointed that it started raining because it's effectively ruined our plans to go hiking. We might also decide that it's not worth it for us to keep going if it's going to rain like this. It might not be safe for us to go. It might not be comfortable anymore. Maybe it was the summer and we planned on hiking in the middle of the day and now it's raining, so we're in our shorts and t-shirts, and it's just not the kind of outfit that we should be wearing in the middle of a rainstorm. As I mentioned before, we might feel really frustrated, really disappointed, really discouraged. And we might start looming on this idea of, man, I'm so frustrated that it rained. This so got in our way. This isn't what I had planned. This sucks. And if we look at this idea of the circle of control, we can identify pretty clearly that it raining and the weather is something that is outside of our control. We never got the option to kind of scroll through a menu and say, I want it to be super sunny and perfect for this hike. It's outside of our control. And the beauty of this idea of locus of control and the circle of control is that we then have the opportunity to ask ourselves, what element of this moment is something that is within our control? And we might have to work really hard on this, or it might come about really easily for us. But it's the idea that maybe in this situation, we run to the store and we grab some gear that allows us to hike in the rain. And we grab some ponchos and we grab umbrellas. And we decide, you know what, we're still gonna go on this hike and we're gonna enjoy it, and we're gonna see how things change when it's raining. We might also say, okay, so it's raining now, we can't control that. Let's find another time to go on this hike. And so we pull out our calendars and we find a new time, and then we say, okay, because we can't control the weather, we can kind of look at what the forecast is gonna be for this and say whether or not this feels like it's gonna be a better day for it or not. And we look at it and it says there's a 0% chance of precipitation. And if you're in the Springs, you know not to fully believe that. But in general, we could look at that and say, well, today was an 80% chance of rain. Tomorrow's a 0% chance. Why don't we go tomorrow? And now we've brought things back into our control. We've found a way for us to be able to make choices that matter in the midst of a situation that we can't change. I think an additional skill to this idea is radical acceptance from Marsha Linehan. She is the creator of dialectic behavioral therapy, which you've seen several activities on the collective from her. The idea of radical acceptance is being able to look at your situation and say, I can't change what things that have happened. I can't change things that are going to happen that are outside of my control. All that I really have power over in this moment is my decisions in this moment. And so I may not like this situation that I'm in. It may totally be the worst situation I've been in a long time. And yet I can't change how it's come across. I can't change very much of what's going forward other than the decisions that I'm making in this moment. And so I'm going to make decisions that are meaningful in this moment. And that's essentially what we're doing in circle of control. We're trying to find things that we can pull back into our circle of control. Oftentimes in the counseling room, I see this idea come up when I have a husband or a wife that comes in individually. And a lot of the content that we're talking about at the start is about the partner. If she would just do this, or if he would just do this, and they keep saying this thing and it's really making me mad, and I can't handle this thing that they're doing, and I want them to stop. We also see this sometimes with parents where the kid is misbehaving or not listening. And if they would only just listen to me, if they would only do this, like I wish that they were just being obedient and all of these different elements. And oftentimes I will say in the midst of everything that we're working through, I think all of that's true. Like if they would stop this, probably be better, because if the problem didn't exist, the problem wouldn't be a problem. And yet, we in this room do not have any control over what your kid does, what your partner does, what anyone else does. Other people's thoughts, behaviors, and feelings are outside of our control, which also means that our thoughts, behaviors, and feelings are in our circle of control. And so when we come into this situation, it allows us to let go of some of the anxiety that naturally develops as we're looking at these outside environmental, circumstantial, or other people-focused problems. I think pretty strongly that one of the things anxiety wants the most is control. And so in a healthy way, when we use this idea of locus of control, we're actually giving that to our anxiety in an empowering way. Instead of lingering on the thoughts of if only this would happen, if only this person would change, if only it wasn't raining on the day of our hike, we would be able to fill in the blank. Now we're saying, okay, it's doing all of this stuff. What am I able to do? And that might be a really hard question to ask, might be a really easy question to ask, might actually be a mix of both. But I think at the end of the day, when we start asking that question, what's inside of our circle? What do I actually have control over? It's a very empowering, anxiety-reducing question, because we might have that child that is misbehaving and being disobedient, sneaking out of the house, or acting in ways that are inappropriate. And rather than focusing so much on them changing their behaviors, we start focusing more on how am I responding to this person when they're doing these things? How am I modeling for them the way that we want to behave? How am I listening and paying attention to the things that are happening in their life that seem to be leading up to this? And are there ways that I can impact some of that? Maybe it's they're hungry, and so I'm knowing that I can't feed them, I can't force feed them in the morning, but I can make breakfast for them and see if that's helpful for them. Now I'm in some of the solution focused mode where I'm seeing areas that I can actually impact change rather than feeling stuck and hopeless in my situation. Now, this, along with a lot of other skills, is not a fix to everything. It's a helpful tool to help you in the process of working through problems, working through difficult circumstances and environments. And this activity may not work really well for you at first. It might be something that you have to practice, or it might be something that you throw out entirely because you find a better way to function. And if that's the case, wonderful. I'm so excited that you found that. I'd also encourage you to give this a fair shot. Really ask yourself in the next week, how can I bring this back into my circle of control? What are the areas of this circumstance or this situation that I can actually impact change? Maybe it's just thinking about it differently. Maybe it's changing my behaviors in the midst of this circumstance. And maybe it's evaluating my feelings and trying to identify the ways that my feelings might be getting in the way, or my feelings might be tainting the way that I'm seeing this situation. And as always, if this is something that you want to explore further and to really work through your specific circumstance with, I'd highly encourage you to bring this up with your counselor